time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Last year, we knew how to handle it during the tournament run to get ready for the next game, pretty much right after the game was over. And I think that's something we're still learning, but we're making huge progress on it.
Yeah, we've had too many. Again, I just told the guys this morning when we met, we beat Notre Dame with 9 and had an unbelievably efficient game. Then we go to Virginia and have 19. There's really no way to overcome that. Can't give it, in a lower possession game, you can't have 10 more turnovers. So that's something we just got to keep working on because we're not doing a good enough job of that.
And good Friday evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Thank you so much for joining us, tuning over to us from wherever you were before, or staying with us on your Sports Talk affiliates. Leading into the shows, you're driving home. Perhaps you're out for a walk this evening, taking the dog out for a walk, taking the wife out for a walk. Not saying they're one and the same, obviously. Taking the girlfriend out for a walk. Maybe you're stuck in traffic. Wherever you happen to be, glad you have tuned us in here on Sports Talk. It is Open Mind Friday on Sports. 800-956-7266. We are all in a good mood, aren't we? Yes, we are. Let me speak for the panel. We are all in a good mood. Looking forward to a great weekend. Basketball galore tomorrow, including South Carolina and Texas Tech, and what should be a very interesting matchup in the always highly anticipated nationally SEC Big 12 Challenge.
I'm not the biggest fan of it.
Of course you're not.
I don't like it.
Why?
I don't like where it is in the schedule, number one. I don't like taking a break from conference play. I think that these two conferences share a little bit of heritage because a couple of the schools came from the Big 12 and played in the SEC. But one of them that's from the Big 12 and in the SEC now is not playing in the Challenge. So it's like, why do you even bother to have the damn thing? So in my mind, I look at this and I say, I know there's only 10 teams in the Big 12 and you can have 4 teams that are basically going to have to play against each other.
Explain that to me. How can you have 10 teams in a conference that's called the Big 12?
Same way you can have 12 teams in a conference that's called the Big 10.
Explain that to me.
Exactly.
Because
historically, you just keep the name. You don't even worry about the number of teams.
It's a branding thing.
I get that.
Now, here's the thing.
Once again, it's college sports misleading the public.
The public knows if they like sports. If not, they need to take a chill pill and study it. The key point here is it worked for the SEC last year. I think the SEC got 5 teams in last year because they split with the Big 12, which conceivably people thought was the higher rated conference. So, and let's face it, the SEC is trying to jerry-rig their way into the national conscience about basketball, not so much for the average fan, but the committee when they vote on these things. And I think for them, strategically, it drops into a good position for them.
Well, right now, I mean, if you look at the way that the SEC is perceived nationally, they're on actually better footing than the Big 12, depending on who you look at bracketology-wise.
Because of what they did in the Big 12 Challenge last year.
And also what they did. They did their work early during the non-conference seasons in November and December this year. And their conference RPI is in a lot better spot because of the concerted effort they've made to play Power 5 teams and win.
So we are about to hit the halfway point in league play for the SEC and the ACC for USC and Clemson. So tonight, one thing we'll talk about, amongst other things, is will they make the tournament? Will South Carolina make it again? Will Clemson get in for the first time since Brad Brownell's first season? Jerry Palm came out with his new bracket. He's at CBSSports.com. Of course, he's got Clemson. Clemson is not being hurt in bracketology, coming off the loss to Virginia. The Tigers staying somewhere in the 3 and 4 seed area. He's got them as a 3 seed in the Midwest facing Northeastern. He also has South Carolina in as an 11 seed facing Michigan, the old South Carolina rivalry with Michigan on the hardwood.
From Outback Bowl to
Well, they have history in the NIT as well.
Yeah.
They faced each other in the NIT when Tommy Amaker was the coach at Michigan. South Carolina, an 11 seed to face Michigan. Again, that's in the Midwest Regional. He doesn't break it down by sites as Joe Lunardi does. So both are in right now, but they have a lot of work to do, of course. Clemson playing at Georgia Tech. And I would hope this week, as we have talked about, that they have worked on getting the ball inside to Thomas. Now, Georgia Tech does have one of the better big men in the ACC, a guy who can not only score around the bucket, he's very good defending the bucket. So this will be a good matchup inside if Clemson decides to feed the man down low and let him do his thing.
They have, and I think the one thing that they need to focus on is not relying so much on the three, even if you're not going to Elijah Thomas. They need to drive the ball more, and I think they got away from a lot of that. There was a lot of passing around the perimeter against Virginia. It looked very similar to that run where it got away from them against North Carolina early, where there was a lot of passing around and a lot of 35-foot three-point shots. And so much of what Clemson does is live and die by the three. But here's the problem. When you're dying by the three, you got to figure out how to get your CPR. And your CPR is when you drive the basket and you get to the foul line.
Well, it's what had happened to South Carolina. If you look at that game at Florida, they shot open threes because they first went inside and kicked it back out to shooters who had their feet set. For Clemson, as Frank Martin said, that early on in the season that Chris Silva had to show a little bit more vocal leadership. Elijah Thomas needs to grab one of the guards by the scruff of the uniform, get me the ball inside. I'm open. And that throw has to be right in there, because as soon as he gets open, they hesitate and then try to throw it in there. By the time they do that, then guys collapse inside.
Well, here's a problem, too. The fact that he hasn't been getting the basketball, this is what happens with big men. If you don't get them the ball, then they're going to shoot right away.
There you go.
So if you get him a paint touch, he won't always shoot. He might pass it out. And I think the problem is there isn't a trust right now between the guards and Elijah Thomas for him to be able to make the right decision with the basketball. And I don't know how you develop that in the middle of part of the season. It has to be developed over time. And the problem is Thomas is in a situation right now where he's not getting the ball a lot. Whenever he gets it, he's turning around and shooting. And a lot of times it's going in, but also other times it's not going in. And when it doesn't go in, then they go away from him.
All right, we'll set the stage for the rest of the show for you here coming up. Let's jump to the phones, 800-956-7266 to the PD, the great PD, the home of great thinkers, great athletes, and good-looking people. Wes, welcome into Sports Talk.
Phil, I'm glad you said that. I'm about to go cover your mighty, mighty Atlanta Vikings against the #1 team in Single A, the Marion Lady Hawks.
Okay, looking forward to that game. Yes, sir.
Oh well, I mean,
try and get us a W. I think we need one.
I don't think the Atlanta girls are going to win. I got to put it on News 13 tonight. So if it's like a 90-40 score, I got to put it on there.
Kind of like
the boys would be more
like USC
women in Arkansas last night. Yeah,
you got that right.
Yeah.
Well, number two, since all of the Gamecock fans call you Tiger Phil, this is my question. Is it easier for Dabo to follow Nick Saban at Alabama, or would it be easier for you to follow Tim Beret at Clemson?
Yeah. Well, we haven't mentioned that yet about Tim. Tim Beret, the longtime, first he was assistant SID, then he became the overall SID for many years, and most recently he has just been working with the football team, but doing the basketball color analyst's role on the broadcast. He announced today he's retiring this summer. Well, I sent him a rather curt, nasty note that I am not accepting his retirement announcement. I don't believe in it. Not accepting it. He's too young. He's too useful. He's too knowledgeable. Not accepting it. I turned it down.
Right. I met him in Tampa. When Clemson was down playing in the championship and we were covering it. He didn't know me from Adam. I never met him. He stood there and talked to me for 15 minutes. Just because he's that type of guy. He's a really nice guy. I think Clemson's really going to have a hard time finding. It's kind of like you trying to replace Kevin. You sort of did with your new compadre, but Kevin was kind of a little different. So we'll see how this works out. It's still a waiting game with your new partner there.
It's like Baskin and Robbins, man, 31 flavors. You got a little bit a different flavor with whatever you happen to order. K-Mac was one flavor.
You could say I'm a little bit of Rocky Road.
Willie P's a different flavor. He's quite a good flavor. We'll be right back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Okay, we're back at Sports Talk. Busy Friday night here. No, sir, we don't glide into the weekend. Hardest working sports talk show on the planet. Wofford basketball coach Mike Young coming up at 7:05. Big game. You know, in my younger days,
I know you're gonna say you would have tried to cover both.
Not tried. I would. I would hit South Carolina at noon, finish up there about 3-ish, hit up to Spartanburg, take in the game against East Tennessee. But, you know, times have changed. Just don't have the authority I used to have to be able to do those things. If you know what I mean.
The authority?
Or the energy?
No, I got plenty of energy.
Oh, okay.
The authority. Authority lessons.
Authority has not stopped you from doing anything that you've done, at least in the time I've been here.
Well, sometimes authority steps in. Anyway, he'll be with us a little bit after 7 o'clock. That's a huge game in the SoCon. East Tennessee State. You know who their assistant coach is? Mr. Golden Touch, B.J. Mackey. Went from Charleston Southern to East Tennessee. Look what East Tennessee's doing. Undefeated in the SoCon. Wofford's got 1 loss in the SoCon.
Who was the guy from the Citadel? I forget who used to coach the Citadel, became AD at the Citadel.
Richard Johnson?
NC State coach for
Richard Johnson.
Not Richard Johnson.
Come on, basketball?
Yeah, at the Citadel.
Oh, you're talking about Les Robinson.
Les Robinson.
Well, Richard Johnson was his assistant coach, became head coach at
No, I'm still thinking when he
Wofford.
was at East Tennessee State and had that crowd with Rodney English, and they went out to Arizona and all the upset Arizona.
Well, they had that little guard named Mr. Jennings.
Yeah, Mr. Jennings.
Mr. Jennings.
And Rodney English.
Guy could light it up from anywhere. That should be a big game, a good game up at Wofford tomorrow night.
Yes.
South Carolina tomorrow afternoon. At noon against Texas Tech. We'll hear from Mike Coetzer tonight, playing a little bit better, kind of getting back to his form of last year, maybe getting over that little old sophomore slump people like to refer to. Let's see what else we got for you. Brad Brownell, we'll hear from him. Monty Lee, Tiger Baseball today. They met with the media, so we'll get a little preview from Monty Lee. So a couple things here to kick around. 800-956-7266 related to USC Clemson, the tournament. Could we get 3 in this year? Could we get USC and Clemson and either Wofford or Furman out of the SoCon into the tournament? Maybe Winthrop.
Maybe Charleston out of the Colonial?
Possible. They're running second right now to Northeastern in the CAA.
When the most we've had? 4, was it?
I think one year we had 5.
Okay.
I think one year we had
Charleston
USC,
Southern.
Clemson.
Charleston Southern. Coastal and who else?
Furman or Wofford? You couldn't. Now you wouldn't have had Coastal and Charleston. They're in the same league at that time.
Right.
No, I'm talking Charleston. Well, Charleston Southern.
You mean College of Charleston?
College of Charleston.
Could have been College of Charleston. There was that time I remember that USC, Clemson, and Charleston all played the same day in the NCAA tournament. USC lost in Washington. Clemson, I think they lost in Chicago. And I don't remember where Charleston played, but I think we may have had 5 in at one time. I don't know. We'd have to do some research on that. But do we get at least 2, maybe 3 in this year? And then going to baseball, now we heard from Mark Kingston yesterday. We'll hear from Monty Lee today. Who's going to make it to Omaha? Of course, you got to consider Coastal, Winthrop, the favorite in the Big South. But who's going to make it to Omaha? Is this the year Monty moves the Tigers another step forward and getting past that first round regional? Hasn't gotten past that yet, even though he's hosted 2 years in a row. And I think he needs to get Clemson to that super regional round. Kingston's got a little bit of, shall we say, a honeymoon period. Does he get a little bit of a honeymoon period with the Gamecocks, even though expectations for Gamecock baseball are always unrealistically high by the fans?
I'll answer in order. With Clemson, they got to replace a lot of pitching. That's the one thing that they have to do. South Carolina has to do the same thing. The problem here with South Carolina is the fact that you have a new coach who has basically come in from outside the circle. The fact that they had Ray Tanner kind of, at least in the eyes of people at the time, seamlessly passed the torch to Chad Holbrook, there was at least a little bit of continuity there. This is an entirely new guy, new staff, new situation, new pitching coach. So I think you do have to kind of give him a little bit of a breathing year, if you will. I'm not saying that you're not expecting them to go out and win baseball games, but when you were under 500 in the SEC last year and you weren't able to get a headway there, in my mind, you have to at least allow for a little bit of his changing to go. And it can happen faster in baseball than probably any of the other sports.
That's what I'm about to tell you, because last year you would say that, but last year, Kentucky grabbed a new coach, and who was the other team filled in the West? They had a new coach, and they just took off.
Right.
First year. So you never know. Maybe a new voice this year turns on some of the veteran guys, and some of the young guys who come in will take to it quickly. But it all comes down in South Carolina's thing is if the offense is better and they find those two other starters for the SEC weekend.
And the thing that Clemson has, I mean, they've got their 3, 4, 5 set in the order when it comes to their hitting. So that's the one thing that can cover up a lot of ills.
Sure. All right. 800-956-7266, the number. Couple of quick notes for you. First of all, from Wofford, the staff is now set for Josh Conklin. He has finalized his first staff with the Terriers. Wade Lang, offensive coordinator, assistant head coach, quarterbacks coach. Sam Seifks, defensive coordinator, inside linebackers. That might be pronounced Sakes, Siefkes.
I did Seifkes.
Seifkes?
That's what I did.
I have a feeling the F might be silent.
Who knows?
Be a weird place to have an F.
We'll have to ask him when we go up there.
Ilir Emini, assistant defensive backs. Rob Green, defensive backs, defensive recruiting coordinator. Alan Smith, defensive line. John Wheeler, outside linebacker, special teams coordinator. Freddie Brown, staying on with the Terriers, wide receivers. B.J. Connolly, tight ends. Trey Johnson, offensive line. Dane Romero, running backs, offensive recruiting coordinator.
Are you perplexed?
Am I reading that right?
Are you perplexed?
Well, I've never heard of splitting recruiting coordinator.
No, that's what they have. Rob
Green's
Green's going to handle the defense, and Dane Romero's going to handle the offense as far as recruiting coordinator.
I've never heard of that.
Maybe it's a new wrinkle.
No, it's fine. I'm just saying I've never heard of it being split like that.
You don't know how to calculate WAR either, but so there's things that you don't know.
Phil Smith has resigned as the football coach at Riverside after 5 seasons, a record of 10-44, 1-9 this past season. On the other side of the state, Stratford has hired Denny McDaniel as its new head coach. He's a 95 graduate of Stratford, went to a Charleston Southern where he played football. And let's see, he returns to Stratford to continue his teaching and coaching career. He had been at St. John's High School as a head football coach and athletic director since 2015. So those jobs have been filled. And yes, breaks my heart to say this. Tim Beret announced today he will retire from Clemson as football communications director effective July 1. Began his career there in 1978 as an assistant under Bob Bradley. And he brought so much to that department. You know, Mr. Bradley was the oldest of the old school. I mean, you know how Mr. Bradley was. And Tim coming in from Notre Dame, here's this Catholic boy full of fire from the Fighting Irish. He came down to Clemson, not really expecting to stay very long or make a career out of it.
40 years.
And he did just that. But he brought a lot of innovation, forward thinking to that department, working hand in hand with Mr. Bradley. And gosh, he has meant so much to Clemson. I just can't imagine a Clemson sporting event in general, and in particular a football game, without Tim being in the press box. But now, you know what? He can go play golf 3 or 4 times a week and watch all these Clemson games, just as like he's been doing throughout his career.
He's going to stick
playing
around.
Golf and watching games.
He's going to stick around on a part-time basis. I think he's going to still do some of the writing and also some of the broadcast duties. So he won't be a stranger, but he'll at least be stepping away from the full time.
And it will be strange not having him there, to say the least. All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a Friday night. Glad you're with us. 800-956-7266. We got recruiting coming up for you. Going to hear from Mike Coates of the Gamecocks, Clemson's Brad Brownell, Clemson's Monty Lee. Also, Mike Young will be along in our second hour to preview his big game against East Tennessee State. Let's go to Glenn in North Charleston. Next up on Sports Talk. Hello, Glenn.
Hey, I know you guys like talk college basketball, but you know, when you think of college basketball, you think of cold weather and miserable and everything. I just love baseball, the sound of it around the corner, because you know what that reminds you of? Nice weather coming. You know, just beautiful, short sleeve type weather. You know,
absolutely.
So,
absolutely. Except, of course, the first part of the college baseball season, since they start in mid-February, it could be a little chilly for about the first 2 to 3 weeks. We have sat through some USC Clemson series that actually had snow involved. So it's not always springtime when you get out there on the diamond early in the season.
Mm-hmm. So they're talking about that again in the middle of the month again. So I don't see how they could get games going in February. I really don't. You know, that's a rough month.
Why are they starting the basketball season in the start of November, Glenn? I mean, it's, you know, all these seasons are way too long, in my opinion.
And you know, basketball is a little challenging to get in the building, but you do have heat in the building. It's a little different baseball when you're outside. So, and you're wearing short sleeves, you know. So.
And you're drinking a cold one.
Well, here's the key point, though. At least when it's cold, nobody can be blamed for laying their bats out in the sun. They're getting heated.
The only thing about
you're never going to forget that.
No, I'll never forget. That was something else. I love that.
The thing that again, so much about, and we've talked about this over the past couple of weeks with the basketball schedule extending out to, again, we said it was going to be like the first Tuesday in November is when they're going to start now. I mean, it's just, to me, they got to get to a point where you got to make the beginning of the season and March closer together, because so much.
Well, the problem is you got to get 56 games in, and you have 2 rounds of playoffs. You have actually 3 weekends taken up at the end of the season before you can get to Omaha. I was
talking about hoops.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm talking about hoops. And from that perspective,
yeah,
baseball, obviously, you got to get a lot of those games in. The baseball season, I understand, and a lot of it is taken care of by the fact that a lot of the teams that are in the cold weather cities will go to the southern part of the country, and you know, some will play in San Diego, some will play in Florida, those kind of things. And I know how that's taken care of too. But you know, I can live with that. I can't live with another extension of the basketball season. I really can't.
This note on USC football: Taylor Lamb has been hired by Will Muschamp as a graduate assistant coach and will be working with the quarterbacks or the wide receivers under Brian McClendon, the offensive coordinator. Taylor Lamb, who was the starting quarterback for 4 years at Appalachian State, and the son of former Furman quarterback and coach and current Mercer coach Bobby Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got football in his blood. He's got quarterbacking in his head. And last season, he set an App State record and Sun Belt record for passing touchdowns. I'm sorry, not last season, his career, with 90. Last year, 2,737 yards, 27 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions.
So you're telling me that the Gamecocks are hoping that Lamb can be a good shepherd? Is that what you're telling me? I'm
not telling you that. That's what you're saying. I'm going to let you have that one. Let's go to Tippy. We wish we all were in Edgefield. What's up, Tippy?
Hey, same thing, different address.
Well, I never find you if it's a different address. That's a good idea. Stay on the move.
Well, on my job, I have to go to a different address every day. Bunch of them.
What are you, a revenuer?
No. New garage doors for a living.
Great. It's good stuff.
I got to go there to work on them because there's only one house they ever had brought to me for garage doors, and I live in that one.
Okay. Business good, huh?
You're talking about your extended seasons and all that, but you're thinking, if they try to extend the basketball season, they're going to have to start earlier because they're not going to let the Final Four go any later because of the Masters tournament on TV.
True that.
And, of course, you know how Augusta National is. They're not going to let nobody bother their schedule. So if they want to do that, they're going to have the Final Four after the Masters instead of before the Masters. So
you're trying to say that the Augusta National is a little tight when it comes to the way they run things? Is that what you're trying to say?
Kind of, yeah.
And with CBS controlling both entities, the tournament and the Masters.
Well, ESPN has some Masters too, but the thing about the Masters is this is why I salute the Masters is that they have never allowed television to dictate to them. Now, working in concert with television, they have come around and they've done some things. Remember now, for most of its existence,
first two rounds weren't on TV.
Well, yeah, and you only saw the back nine. You never saw the front nine. They only televised the back nine. And of course, with the presence of television and more money, they came around to where they televised all 4 days and they televised all 18 holes now. So but I can remember watching the Masters and only seeing the backside.
The CBS, they do that on a 1-year contract every year.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing about the folks at the Masters, they don't take any gruff off anybody. Remember when they had the issues with the women threatening to boycott the sponsors, and what they did that year, maybe it was 2 years, they just didn't have any sponsors.
They didn't have any commercials.
They said, we're not going to put our sponsors under this kind of pressure. We just won't have any commercials. I mean, that just shows you when you're strong, and I guess you got the financial wherewithal to be powerful, you can actually dictate yourself what you want to do. Anything else, Tippy?
I think that'll do it. I was just, y'all were talking about the way they're doing the schedules. I was just going to throw that in there so that, the baseball doesn't affect them, but the basketball would, because the Final Four seems to be the weekend or real close to right before the Masters. So
No, it is. Yeah. All right. Thanks. Yeah, we've talked about this before. This basketball season getting pushed earlier and earlier. Now we're up to November 6th.
Yeah,
tipping off.
That's a lot.
And that means the other thing too is, they used not to start practice until October 15th. That was the magical day for the start of college basketball practice. Now we're starting practice in the end of September,
right?
If not sooner than that. So, I mean,
there were some guys who were in for workouts on the first day of school.
I don't know. I just wonder about overdoing it here in the calendar and just having.
I know everybody wants a piece of the pie, but we have to understand where the money's made at a lot of these schools is football, and no one ever wants to try and compromise that.
And let's face it, one of the unique things about when we're talking about the high revenue sports, basketball, and I know other sports do this, but basketball with the high revenue sport is the only one that transcends 2 semesters. I mean, I know some schools are still on the quarter system, but still that makes it interesting on how you want to compact the thing. I think for college kids, 2 games a week is enough. Now, sometimes when you compress the schedule, there'll be 3 games off, and you're
talking about in basketball?
In basketball.
What happens like in the Big East tournament, if you have to play the first day, or the ACC tournament, you could play 5 games.
No, but I'm talking about during the regular season.
Yeah.
They try to do that. And of course, now they try to give one team a week off.
There is an off week, supposedly
so,
work into your schedule.
I wouldn't start it until December.
I just think, this overlapping of seasons, I just think it's wrong. I think there should be some separation. I think there should be a little bit of a break, a little bit of a downtime. I mean, look at this. You're asking your fans, and maybe this is part of the problem when you're South Carolina and Clemson and most everybody else in the country that's not a blue blood basketball program. You're asking your fans now to come out on Saturdays in November. There's usually 4 games. And now you're dumping in about 3 weeks of basketball, men's and women's, and you're asking your fans to come out and support that. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
I know the pros said this about them not being on the same system, but they should not start basketball season until they're done with exams in December, and then they can focus on basketball.
I would say Thanksgiving would be a great time to start the basketball season.
I don't have any problems with Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving tournaments and everything with that. I think that'd be a great time.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We've got recruiting right around the corner for you on this Friday night. If you want to jump in and join us as well, 800-956-7266 is the phone number. USC is getting ready for a noon tip tomorrow against Texas Tech in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. Willie P. was over with the Gamecock players today, who they brought over to talk about the game.
Brought over Mike Kotsar, who talked with us about this Texas Tech team. This Texas Tech ball club will be the fourth consecutive ranked team that South Carolina will face here in the last 2 weeks. They played number 18 Kentucky last week, beat them, lost to Tennessee, which is in the top 25 as well, and of course beat number 20 Florida. So I think they played 18, 19, and 20 all in succession. Texas Tech comes in at number 14 out of the Big 12 Conference. Big senior Keenan Evans is kind of the man who stirs the drink for them. And Kotsar talked about the fact that these ranked teams, it's not hard to get up for these teams.
I mean, of course, it means a lot. Texas Tech is ranked, what are they, 14th, I think. They're a really good team, as has been the three last teams we've played. I mean, actually, pretty much everyone we've played in SEC. Yeah, it means a lot because it means we're going to be up there with the top 25 teams. Like, we have a chance to be there.
They seem more of like a defensive team, kind of like you guys are. They try to, make you play their way and get offense off their D. Is that what you've seen on tape?
Yeah. Right now we've gone more through personnel, gone over that. Today's more of a team-oriented tape, so haven't gone through a lot, but I know that they're very active both on defense and offense.
Mike, how are they similar to some of the SEC teams you've faced?
I think they're a lot like a 4-round-1 type team, shooting a lot of threes, or actually being more active, moving the ball a lot, moving a lot themselves, being able to set a screen at one point and then coming off a flare or coming off another screen like just a few seconds later. So overall, we just got to be on our horses pretty much every second of the game.
With the stretch you guys have had the last couple of weeks with going up against ranked team after ranked team, do you guys get extra motivated when you're going up against a team like that?
Of course. I mean, we're as motivated as can be every game. So kind of a tough question. Like, there's no no right answer, but I feel like, with every win, we get more motivated to just go and get a win.
Mike, do you think this team is like peaking right now, or how much better do you think you guys can play?
I think we can get a lot better because we're still a young team. We have a lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores, like only a few upperclassmen, plus the two grad transfers we have are first year on the system. So I think we can get a lot better.
How big of a thing is momentum when you're playing as well as you guys have played? You had the victory over Kentucky, the victory for Florida. Is that something you guys can take in from game to game?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have to have the momentum, but at the same time, if things are not going our way, we have to keep our heads up. We can't let opponents go in runs, which we let them do at the beginning of SEC play. There were a lot of times when we let the opponent just go on a 15-0 run and not recover from it. But now we've just learned to keep our heads up and fight back after the runs.
Like, have you noticed a change about the way you guys have handled victory after your second ranked win? The first one we all saw you at Kentucky and how hyped everyone was. How's the team handled this one coming back from Gainesville?
I think we're becoming more mature about our wins. Like last year, we knew how to handle it during the tournament run to get ready for the next game, pretty much right after the game was over. And I think that's something we're still learning, but we're making huge progress on it.
second-year coach and Chris Beard for Texas Tech. They do play, as Mike Kotsar said, a 4-guard lineup around a center. So a lot of mid-range stuff that they do, a lot of outside stuff as well. And, from the Red Raiders' perspective and from South Carolina's perspective, this is a good matchup for them because they do have some size that they can take advantage of with South Carolina against Texas Tech. But there is obviously the quickness of their guards that should be very hard to handle. And that's something that South Carolina, they're going to have to take the same kind of defensive intensity that they had against Florida, bringing into this game.
Yeah, and the Red Raiders coach is playing with a torn ACL himself. He's coaching with a torn ACL.
Interesting.
Says he will not let it slow him down.
I got to think that this team, from what I've seen, Corn, and I've only seen about 10 minutes of them. I was watching the game, and this was way back when they first started the season. And they remind you some of Tennessee. Their guards are quick, but they kind of have a little girth to them. They'll go inside on you and they'll rebound. They're almost one of the, as they say, positionless teams, as they call them now.
All right, let's get to the recruiting report for tonight. Recruiting weekend off and running for USC with the arrival last night of defensive lineman John Mincy of Homerville, Georgia. He came early so he can leave earlier Saturday to get home for a basketball game. He has also been to Tennessee and is scheduled to visit Florida State next weekend. Auburn and Arkansas also making a late push for him. He's a former Arkansas commitment. Also scheduled for officials this weekend at USC, defensive lineman Rick Sandage, offensive lineman Dylan Wunham, and wide receiver Warren Thompson. Sandage is Gamecocks in Georgia. Wunham is Gamecocks, Tennessee, Auburn. And Thompson has been to Florida State, Tennessee, and North Carolina. He's a former Oregon commitment. Clemson is set to host a pair of defensive back targets in Mario Goodrich of Lee's Summit, Missouri, and Patrick Surtain of Plantation, Florida. Third defensive back prospect, Tyon Palmer of Lawrenceville, Georgia, had been scheduled for Clemson this weekend, but is instead going to Tennessee. Goodrich is a former Nebraska commit. He has taken visits to LSU and Georgia and is scheduled to visit Arkansas next weekend. Surtain has visited LSU and Alabama and is scheduled to visit Miami next weekend. Scheduled official visits this weekend for other USC targets include defensive lineman Jordan Miller to Virginia and defensive end Dennis Briggs to Florida State. The entire Florida State defensive staff was in to see Briggs at his school Thursday. Also, Gamecock commitment offensive lineman Lamarius Benson of Covington, Georgia, is taking an official visit to Central Florida this weekend. Scheduled officials for other Clemson targets include defensive back Leon O'Neal to Georgia, offensive lineman Richard Gurridge to Florida, and wide receiver Justin Ross to Auburn. Also this weekend, Conway linebacker Jalen Moody will visit Arkansas, and he has set a visit to Alabama for next weekend. He has been to Georgia State and Ole Miss. USC commit Bryce Thompson, who took an official to Marshall last weekend, said he's shutting down his recruiting. He plans to sign with the Gamecocks February 7th. USC offered 2020 defensive back Keyshawn Lawrence of Nashville. 2020 running back DeAndre Jackson of Stone Mountain, Georgia, was offered by USC. He's a former Auburn commit. USC offered 2020 defensive end Miles Murphy of Marietta, Georgia, and 2021 offensive lineman Eli Sutton of Nashville. Clemson offered 2019 defensive end Brandon Dorius of Deerfield Beach, Florida. 2019 offensive lineman Darnell Wright of Huntington, West Virginia. 2020 running back Jalen Knighton of Deerfield Beach. 2020 receiver Dawan McDougal of Deerfield Beach. 2020 receiver Daslin Worsham, Trussville, Alabama. And 2019 offensive lineman Wanya Morris of Loganville, Georgia. Michigan, one of the favorites of running back Quavaris Crouch of Charlotte. Jim Harbaugh was by his school Thursday. USC Clemson also heavily involved. Arkansas offered USC target defensive back Jalen Phillips of Lawrenceville, Georgia. Chapin receiver Xavion Gordon committed to South Carolina State. 2019 6'5" Wendell Moore of Concord, North Carolina will visit USC Saturday. Blythewood forward Robert Braswell picked up offers from UMass and Murray State. We got a little bit more that we'll get to in our next hour. But first up will be Mike Young of Wofford. He joins us after the top of the hour break.
year with junior college kids, graduate transfers here and there, and I don't say that. I don't begrudge him. I would do the same thing if I could. We all want to stay old, as far as coaching goes, and that's a way for us to do that. We have chosen a different route for a variety of reasons. But he graduated, I don't know, I thought it was 5 seniors a year ago as 4 of his 5 leading scorers. And, here comes another group, and they're talented and play really hard. I admire, and I always have, since Steve got to East Tennessee, Coach Forbes, they play the right way. And by that, I mean they play hard, and they guard, they share. And I wish I didn't have to play them. I enjoy watching them, in the lead up to our games with them. I really do.
He's 36-8 in Southern Conference games in his career to this point. That's pretty strong.
Again, it's what happens when you put good players and good coaching together. You win games, and he's done a lot of that up there, and they've got the fever. We'll be sold out again tomorrow night. I have heard that there are a number of East Tennessee people coming down, and it'll be another great atmosphere in our building. It's been fun and unique how that facility, and of course we've had something to do with it. We've been pretty good ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a great atmosphere, a great night here in Spartanburg once again.
You've been making your 3-pointers almost like free throws, Coach. Second in the country with 3-point percentage. How do you get your team to not be aroused with it when it's not working?
We keep slinging them up there. I've got a bunch of guys that can shoot it. 1 through 4 can really shoot it. I've got a 5 backpacker from Wando down at Charleston that can shoot the ball. Also, I instill confidence in them, and I don't say a lot to them. I've seen them make them, time and time again in practice, and when the lights are on, and the ugliest thing I'll say to them after missed a shot is, if you turn the next one down, I'm going to take you out of the game. You guys would like to play for me. You didn't have any coaches tell you that. Shoot it. We'll be okay. And we got some guys that can really rip it. Not the leader of the pack obviously is Fletch, and he's cooled off here a little bit, but he has put together a great year, and we're awfully proud to have him in a Wofford uniform.
The old quotes are, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and as Larry Bird used to say, shoot when you're hot, shoot till you get hot.
There you go. I like that philosophy. We subscribe to that same line of thinking here at Wofford.
When you watch a basketball game like this, Coach, and we always see on the missed 3, the high carom sometimes hard off the rim. Do you have to talk to your big men as well as your guards how to rebound on those high caroms when a lot of threes are getting jacked up? Because I understand that East Tennessee hit 13 their last time out.
They did. What you got to be leery of is that those long ones, the carom, if you miss it, it can bounce out of there to 10, 15 feet, and a team like East Tennessee gobbles that up, and here they come, and they run like a high major would, and now you're on your heels and 3-on-2s and 2-on-1s, and that does not end well a lot of times. So you've got to get your floor balanced and get people where they're supposed to be, and you've got to get some rebounding from your guards, and that carom can oftentimes lead to another 3 because of the crowds coming to the ball, and we spray people out of there and stick it back onto the perimeter for another one. That may be a little too detailed for the listening audience, but I think you guys know where I'm coming from.
Too detailed for us. So you got 2 home games to close out the month. You really need to take care of business because you're going to be a road warrior next month.
Yeah. Skewed a little bit. We've been tough as a pine knot in here. We've got to go on the road. I think 6 of our last 9. Tomorrow represents our last home game, our last Saturday home game. So, you know, I mean, that's what that was a schedule we were given, and we've played it. We've played it quite well. I don't think we've lost in January. Lost to Greensboro in our first one up there, December 30th. I've got a good team, fellas. If like Coach Martin and everybody else, Coach Brownell, that had you know, a setback last week with Grantham, we've got to stay healthy. And you know, an injury flips this thing around for, you know, to the detriment of our club. We've got to stay healthy and, you know, keep getting a little bit better. And you know, I like them a lot. I like this team. We've got a shot, and we look forward to what lies ahead.
Now, I think you told us back in the preseason you got North Carolina scheduled for next year at your place. I'm wondering, since you beat them up there and made them mad, and then, you know, Roy wasn't able to accomplish his goal of landing a young man right there in your own neighborhood last week, which would have been kind of a who? You
went there, Phil. Wow.
Oh, you said ooh. My question is, has he called up and said, "Hey, we ain't coming"?
No. Something tells me when that time rolls around, he'll have them all fired up, and the Tar Heels will be a little bit better than they were up there December 20th this past year. But you know, what a night that'll be for our town. It'll be a lot of fun. Then we go back up there the following year. So, you know, they're still talking about it down here. They will continue to do so for years to come. It was a pleasure to be a small part of it, and we'll look forward to having the Tar Heels in Spartanburg a year from now.
What's been the secret to Trevor's emergence, Mike? In our final minute with you, he's averaging 17 points per game in conference and has really shown the scoring propensity alongside Fletcher there.
He's been maybe the difference in our team. Fellas, he played very little as a freshman. He was hurt as a sophomore, redshirted him. I told my son asked me what I thought of him. I said, you know what, Davis, he's really worked hard. I think, you know, he'll play 10, 12 minutes. I can't take him off the floor. He makes every right play. He's, I think, 4th in our league in scoring. He's a terrific passer, and he's helped our spacing offensively. He's a dandy.
Good luck tomorrow night. Like you said, packed house should be a great atmosphere for you and a great opportunity for you to get Wofford on top of the standings there in the SoCon. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, fellas. Have a good night.
You too, sir. Thank you.
One of my favorite coaches to talk to in the state. He's a blessing.
Mike Young from Wofford. Yeah, I thought maybe Roy might say, hey, we ain't coming. You beat us. We didn't get our guy. We have no reason except to go maybe have a nice hamburger there in Spartanburg. No other reason to go.
A little beacon action.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Once again, we thank Mike Young for being with us here on Sports Talk. Continued success to him. I hope we don't do for him what we've done for Furman. They haven't been the same since Coach Ritchie joined us before the Wofford game. Lost that game, went on a little bit of a slump, bounced back with a win, I think, earlier this week.
You're trying to say it's our fault? Is that what you're trying to say?
You haven't been around long enough to understand the Sports Talk jinx or the Sports Talk kiss. Mm-hmm. We have both. We have the kiss and we have the jinx. It can go, of course, both ways depending on what happens. Stronger than the Sports Illustrated jinx. The Sports Talk kiss, the Sports Talk jinx. Let me wrap up recruiting. Had a little bit more for you before we had Coach Young on. USC just made another offer. Boy, they've offered a lot of people. Offensive lineman E.J. Doma Ogar. I'm assuming the N is silent. N-D-O-M-A. E.J. Doma Ogar, 6'2", 305 from Allen, Texas.
Ah.
You seen the stadium out there where they play?
I know exactly where they play.
Big time stadium, right?
Huge.
Clemson hosted Alabama commit offensive lineman Pierce Quick of Trussville, Alabama last weekend among the underclassmen who came in. His second visit with the Tigers. Said it was a great visit, seeing the coaches again, the dorms, talking with Robbie Caldwell, Dabo Sweeney, enjoyed all that. And Clemson is in the hunt. Didn't shake him from his commitment. Still, however, a little more open as things pertain to Clemson. Loves Alabama, he said, but he'll come back to see Clemson again. Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, Michigan, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Oregon among his offers. And 2019 defensive end Rashad Cheney, 6'3", 275, Atlanta, announced a decommitment from Georgia yesterday, now open as he restarts the process. USC is one of the schools in good shape. He felt like he made his commitment to Georgia too young. He was only in the 10th grade, and he was new to the recruiting process, he said. So he wanted to go through the recruiting process, so he decommitted. He's made 5 visits to USC over the years, so he's already got a strong relationship with the coaching staff. He knows the program. He knows Brian McClendon well, said they are from the same area. So he likes him. He likes Will Muschamp, and he likes what Muschamp is doing in Columbia. He does not have another visit planned for USC at this point, but he plans to return soon. He has been to Auburn recently, and he plans to visit Tennessee next weekend. He does not have a favorites list at this point. He won't make his decision until close to the early signing period. He does hope to graduate early. And that is it. There you go with recruiting. Now, you want to stay with us over the weekend on our website, sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC, as we'll be updating the notes as we run across them throughout the weekend.
You know the story behind that Allen Stadium, right?
The story behind the Allen Stadium. Well, I know that they had to tear it down.
It was built in 2012.
Yeah.
They cost them $60 million. It's an 18,000 stadium, state of the art, right?
Mm-hmm.
3 years after it's built, they found a crack in the foundation, so they had to repair it, and they couldn't use it for a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
They said it was the most expensive crack in Texas.
Yeah.
As opposed to the kind that you can get in McAllen.
Exactly.
This guy.
I mean, sometimes they write themselves,
Uh-huh.
So, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I know that it's certainly big. Just high school football. They got a lot of stadiums for high school football like that, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of really large stadiums with big press boxes.
And they need them.
Seat about 20,000.
It's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
There was one right down the street from where I lived, and it was bigger than any stadium I know I played in.
All right. Brad Brownell.
Heard of
getting Clemson ready for Georgia Tech on Sunday.
They are. They're going to see Georgia Tech, and this is a squad that they will see that's, kind of middle of the road in the SEC, but this is something that they can't overlook right now because they haven't played well at home the last couple of times out. Their 3 losses have all come in ACC play on the road. Their only win coming earlier in the season. And to me, it's, you're looking at it from the standpoint of Clemson. They just need to kind of get themselves better footing without using Dante, or with the loss of Dante Grantham. That's something that announced going into his media press conference on Friday.
I think our kids showed pretty good grit for a long time. We got off to a bad start, 7-0. I called timeout, and it's like the gym is electric. I mean, it is rocking, and it's like they're ready. I mean, they smell blood, and we come out of that timeout and go on an 11-0 run, I think. And I think that's the longest run anybody's had against them all season. To do that in their gym, I think our guys showed pretty good courage and pretty good toughness. And then it was, back and forth for a little while, and then all of a sudden you look up and we've got a 6, 7, 8, 9 point lead, and we're kind of controlling the game, playing well. And then give Virginia credit. Then our offense started to sputter. We couldn't score, and slowly but surely they whittled a possession here, a possession there. They get a basket, they get a three, they get a foul, and now all of a sudden you look up and it's tied or whatever it was, and we end up down 4 at half. And we were in fine. We were in good position. Again, I thought we defended great. We held them to 38% shooting. We were similar. It was a very difficult first half for both teams to score. I thought our guys were competing. Amir was obviously a little nervous early. He shot one over the goal, and he threw a high-low pass and hit the backboard. I mean, there's no question the guy's starting his first game in his, basically in his hometown. He was a little nervous, but he settled into the game great and battled. Did what we thought he would do. He had 9 and 6 and 25 minutes, played good, but we just didn't have enough. Some of that was frustration, where you're trying to make a play that's not there because there's nothing good happening for you, and you need to feel like you need to do something. And then some of it's just very good Virginia defense. Their size and hand activity and length, their athleticism of their post players to move around and get back is high level.
BC out of Georgia Tech.
Team that's playing much better and certainly plays great at home. Okogie's an all-conference player at the wing. And he had 9 offensive rebounds yesterday to go along with once and 4 assists or whatever he had. And he's just an elite level player. Ben Lammers has always been a very good player. Inside, affects the games in a lot of ways. He's making shots, but he's blocking shots. He's altering shots. He's rebounding. The freshman point guard Alvarado is playing well, coming off one of his best games. Had a huge game last night at Florida State, made threes. Looks more like a seasoned guy who's had 20 games of college experience and playing 30 minutes a game. So, this is a good team that had a very good ACC run last year. They didn't lose much. Tadrick Jackson's still back, big wing, strong. They changed defenses on you. You got to be prepared for zone, and with Ben Lammers around there defensively around the rim, it's hard to score. So execute their stuff. They run some of the Princeton stuff. So they're going to play out of the elbow a lot and some old Johnny Orr 2-guard stuff. So just very fundamental and rhythmic in their offense and how they just turn it. So it'd be a very competitive game.
And the thing, too, for Clemson Pro is that, I know we've been talking and we've been harping about them getting the ball inside, but the one thing that they don't have without Dante Grantham is the passing ability that he brings to the table.
Yeah, the third passer you need.
And that's the way that they're able to get the kind of looks that are open, like for guys like DeVoe and Marquise Reed and Shelton Mitchell. And that allowed them to almost kind of have a fourth guard on the floor, if you will. And Amir Sims is not at that level. You can't expect him to be at that level, but he has to provide something. And I know he scored 9 points, had 6 rebounds. You need to find a way to collectively replace what you have when you don't have Dante Grantham out there on the floor. And it's a hard thing to do.
Well, Elijah Thomas, I think what Lammers can be is sort of a defensive pressure release for Thomas, because the interesting thing about Lammers is he's comfortable inside blocking shots and rebounding, but as soon as that ball gets rebounded, he stands out there at the three-point line and can stroke it.
Absolutely.
So Elijah Thomas has to come out. So if you don't want him to come out and be your primary defensive rebounder, that's when Amir has to come out on Lamberts, because that 6'11" guy will go out and shoot it and stroke the three.
But a golden opportunity for Clemson to go on the road in the ACC and get a valuable win to keep that RPI very, very high, which is right now, I think, number 6. Back in a moment. Out in San Diego, round 2 of the Farmers Insurance Open. I watched a lot of that last night. I love watching the replay of the day's PGA Tour round. Spent a lot of time, of course, watching Tiger. I'll say this. He shot, even par today?
1 under.
He shot 1 under today.
Yes.
He
He's 1 under for the tournament. That's all I know.
No, I think he shot even part of the day.
Okay, he's 1 under for the tournament.
I'll pull it up here in a second. But watching him yesterday, he's got that smile back again, something you haven't seen from Tiger in a long, long time. It looks like he's enjoying himself. So far, so good with the body. Appears to be pain-free, able to swing the club freely. There's been some changes listening to the commentators. There's been changes to how he's swinging the club. He's using more body and less arms. And the way that he is now swinging the club, it takes some of the pressure off his back. And they're saying that that's going to be a help to him. He shot today, 1 under today. So he is 1 under for the tournament. 72-71.
Make me doubt myself. Dang it.
Ryan Palmer, 66-67. He's 11. John Rahm continues to play well. And then at 9 under, Luke List and Tony Finau, 9 under. As far as some of the other locals, Kyle Stanley, he's 3 under. Lucas Glover is 2. Bill Haas is 2. Kyle Thompson is +1. Jonathan Bird is +3. Jason Day came in with a 64. He's 7 under. Phil Mickelson had a 68. He is 6 under. And let's see, the cut line fell at -1. So
the thing that Tiger needs to do is, and the problem.
So Tiger just made it on the cut.
He barely made it
Yeah.
On that back stretch there. And the thing that really needs to kind of transform is that it's going to be a hard climb for him to go from a guy who provides just kind of these signature Tiger-esque moments like the shot he hit on 16 yesterday, to become a guy who can actually be a contender in a tournament. I still think that there's some room left there for him to try and conquer, because he needs to at least prove it to people who watch golf, people who play golf, that he is somebody who can be a force to be reckoned with on a regular basis in a tournament. Until he actually does it, it's going to be hard to imagine him being able to.
Well, it's a different guy. I mean, all he needs to do is take 3 decades, look at the way he was built, very spindly, and he really put a lot of torque in that lower back because he used his body like a whip. Now, as he's gotten older, he's got that weight. He has to learn to shift it and use that weight versus just whipping his body, which really probably did something with the back, with that strain it put on it. So he's had to change. I think this may be his 4th or 5th time trying to augment or change his swing to be a contender. But I think psychologically, as Phil said, if he stays pain-free, and I've seen people with tremendous back pain when they're pain-free, and they look like a different person. So that psychologically is going to help him if his lower back can stay pain-free.
Yeah, and you talk about those Tiger-esque moments. He almost had one yesterday. I can't recall what hole it was. It was a long putt, and he started giving it. He didn't start walking towards the hole. He started walking to the side.
Right.
Like he felt like this had a really good chance. And it was a long putt, maybe, I don't know, 50, 60 feet. So he had plenty of time to add some drama. It just missed. But everybody could see Tiger starting to get that little oomph again.
Well,
and I think it's because he feels good. He's having fun now. He's got his personal issues behind him. Looks like he can focus on golf. And I think it will be just a matter of time before he wins again. And once he wins again, especially if he wins a major again, boy, all the talk about catching Jack will restart. And he's still young enough. He still probably has, if he stays healthy from this point moving forward, he still has at least 10 good seasons left in him.
Now, I know we've
That'd
talked
be early 50s.
We've talked about this with our guy GB3. Tiger is kind of like the drug that golf can't seem to lay off of, in a way, because they know he's good for the sport. They know he brings eyeballs, but so much of what has been the problem with golf is trying to cultivate a marketing plan that doesn't involve Tiger Woods. Now, of course, he comes in here with this latest resurrection of his career, and you have to understand that, yes, it's good to have him involved. It's good to have him involved in tournaments like Torrey Pines that are high visibility tournaments. But you also have to realize that he's not going to be a golden goose there forever. You have to at least make sure that you're at least cultivating the sport around.
Well, true. In his absence, guys like Rory and Dustin Johnson and
Jason Day
and
McElroy.
I said McElroy. Texas.
Jordan Spieth.
Jordan Spieth and now Thomas. And I mean, there's been some to rise and provide excitement. But let's face it. Let's just be totally honest. Nobody brings what Tiger brings to a golf tournament.
Absolutely
Nobody
not.
brings the attention, the notoriety, the eyeballs, the interest. He's like Arnold and Jack. When they were playing, you always checked to see what Arnold and Jack did. Did you check to see what Lee did or what Gary did or what Raymond did? Maybe, maybe not. You always checked on Arnold and Jack.
I don't know how you get that back. I really don't.
And sometimes you get fans out of nowhere, Phil, because there's still a generation out there that look at Tiger Woods as a little boy who used to come on the Mike Douglas show doing putting tricks, telling people he was going to win all the majors. And he was only, 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
So you got that crowd. I want to see him. You know, I used to see him when he was on the Mike Douglas show years ago. So he has crossed so many generations during his career, even as a little kid.
What's a shame is that, of course, the PGA Tour is set up in such a way they can't make the golfers really, play where they and when they don't want to play. It's too bad because, golfers like Tiger and Dustin Johnson, the big hitters, they won't play Harbor Town. They won't play the Heritage because it's not set up for their kind of game.
And it happens the week after the Masters, so they want to break a lot of times.
Well, yes, true. That's true. But still, there should be a rule, I think, where you have to make at least an appearance, say, every 4 years in a tournament, because that's only good for the game.
Right.
Imagine the one time that Tiger played in the Heritage. I was covering it. And, I mean, you had 30,000 people following him.
I covered
That's an exaggeration a bit, but I'm saying place was packed. You couldn't shoehorn another person.
Is Boeing still sponsoring?
Yeah.
But tell Boeing, look, Tiger, free flights for how many years?
I covered Tiger's first AT&T National Congressional, and it was a major because he was there, and it was his tournament.
Yeah, I mean, he is the draw at the PGA at Kiowa. Even though it was Rory who eventually ran away with it, people wanted to be near Tiger at the entire fairway. Whatever hole he happened to be on, the entire fairway was lined with people just wanting to get a glimpse of Tiger, and you couldn't get near him. I mean, seriously, you had to watch him from 2 or 3 fairways away, get up on a berm or something. Just you can't get around him. There's so many people who want to be there.
There hasn't been a guy since Ali in a singular person sport, as in a non-team sport, who has been as singular a draw to a sporting event as Tiger Woods is.
And of course, the chapter now writes, like Ali, people love a guy who may dominate, and they love a comeback story.
Redemption.
Absolutely. And this is the redemption. This is the comeback story. We'll see how it to be continued.
Yeah. He's off to a good start here. He's off to a good start. Made the cuts, and I don't think he's expecting to go out and win here right away. But I think gradually, as he builds up his endurance, and he probably still has to have that complete confidence that any swing he takes is not going to hurt his back. There's going to be that time when the 3-iron hits a root. And when you hit a root with your 3-iron, it sends that shockwave through your body. How he feels after that happens will be kind of telling moving forward for him.
I left the 9-iron in Hilton Head that way. It wasn't fun.
Okay, we'll be right back.
The guys are always checking email. Send your comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
Well, if you're bored this weekend, if basketball is not enough for you, you do have the Pro Bowl.
My favorite.
You do like that, don't you?
I do.
You can have it.
I'm almost kind of mad that I have to cover a basketball
I can't
game
watch
during
a football game where they don't want to tackle, they don't want to hit, they don't want to maim.
If you don't like the Pro Bowl, you don't like football.
I'm not a Pro Bowl fan. I'm not a fan of all-star games that in no way resemble a regular season game.
So basically 3 out of the 4?
Yeah, the only one I like is the Major League Baseball All-Star game. That's the only one that is played for real. That's the only one that's played for real.
It's not supposed to
now, my
represent
problem
real.
there is that they substitute too much in the Major League Baseball All-Star game. They're taking guys in and out too quickly, But, I mean, an NBA game that is 180-something to 170-something, no thank you. No thank you.
They play defense in the fourth quarter.
An NFL game that is what? 70-something to 60-something?
They're not that high scoring.
A hockey game that's 12-11? No, thank you.
Well, the hockey one is different now. The hockey one, they do
I wouldn't know.
They do 3-on-3 now for the hockey game. So
Well,
it actually is rather exciting. This is the second year they're doing it this way. They have 4 different divisions with that.
Okay, Clemson baseball team, like the others, hit the field today for the first time. Practice underway up at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Monty Lee met with the media prior to, give us a little insight on what he's looking forward to this year with the Tigers.
We're very excited to be able to get the full squad out here, get started on the process of one day at a time, trying to get our team better, letting our guys compete against each other to try to determine their roles, trying to earn the roles on a starting pitching staff that lost, all of our starting pitching. And then we have a number of positions that are still up for grabs as well. So it's a time of competition. And that's the way that I look at it. It's one day at a time. Let's compete as hard as we can to try to see, who's the right guys, the best 9, not necessarily the 9 best players, but the best 9 guys to help us win, put them out there on the field, but also teach these guys as much as we can in a short amount of time to prepare them for one of the best leagues in the country, which is the ACC. But we've got a very tough non-conference schedule at the beginning of the year, a number of high-quality opponents that are going to challenge our players. But we get to start those games right here at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, and we play pretty well at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. So we're really excited about the day and what that encompasses and just ready to get started.
At what point would you like to have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday guy, midweek guy in place?
I think a lot of people put a lot of stock in that. And to be honest with you, I've went as a head coach. I'm in my 10th year. I've had a number of years where it was literally after Sunday's inter-squad the week before you started, before we determined, okay, who's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And oftentimes that happens when you've lost some guys. When some guys are trying to fight for those spots and trying to earn that right. It makes it pretty easy when you got a Barnes, a Eubanks, a Crawl, and then a 5th-year guy like a Tyler Jackson coming in, where it's pretty easy to see who's going to be the starter. So this year's a little bit different, and I'm excited about that. I really am, because I think our pitching staff will get better as the season goes. We feel good about the pool of candidates that we have in the mix to start. It's just a matter, again, of who's going to earn the right to toe the rubber on game 1, game 2, and game 3.
Is this one of the best offensive clubs you've ever had coming back?
It's a good question. I don't know that. I really don't. I try not to make too many predictions one way or the other, just because you really don't know. Injuries happen. It's baseball. I've seen guys have incredible years one year, struggle the next. Guys that you didn't think were going to be factors, be big-time factors for you. So the unpredictability of the game is there, so you just don't know. But we, on paper, definitely have a chance to be a good offensive ball club, and it all starts with that 3-headed monster. Davidson, Chris Williams, and Seth Beer. Those 3 guys, I think any college baseball coach would sign up for those 3 bats in the lineup, they make all of us look like we're pretty good hitting coaches. So all 3 of those guys are dynamic offensive players that bring a different skill set than the other ones. You know, it all starts right there, and then we're going to build around those guys. We feel like we got a chance to be a good offensive club.
Okay, Monty Lee from up at Clemson. We'll hear more from him in the preseason and heading toward the regular season. Another recruiting note for you just ran across. This is in basketball. This is being reported by Evan Daniels of 24/7 Sports. He spoke with E.J. Montgomery, the 6'11" forward out of Marietta, Georgia, 2018 kid. He's got it down to 11 schools.
Oh, only 11? Don't read it.
Wow.
Don't read all. Please don't read all.
Including
Don't read all of them.
USC and Clemson.
Okay. Don't read all of them.
No, I must. Here we go.
This is bad radio.
Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, Wake Forest, Vanderbilt, Georgetown, Southern Cal, Georgia, and UCLA, plus USC and Clemson. Wasn't too bad. My point is, if you're USC and Clemson, after what happened with Zion, why even try?
You keep going because
why even try?
Well, if you thought that way, then Hugh Durham wouldn't have gone to North Carolina.
Oh, you always want to use Dominique as a big guy that gets away from the big dogs.
Because there's a guy out there who wants to do that.
Bought him.
And North Carolina didn't buy theirs with cheap diplomas.
The echo on that one.
There's no reason that he would go to Georgia unless something was getting greased.
Why? See,
who would go play basketball in Georgia because Dominique Wilkins?
Because Hugh Durham had recently taken a Florida State team to the Final Four.
Mm-hmm. And what happened with that?
They lost to UCLA and Bill Walton. And a lot of guys do that.
Weren't there some things that happened afterwards?
I don't think it was. No, that was after your boy got caught in the situations.
What boy is that?
The big center, Big Red.
Dave Cowens?
Yes. That's where the problems happened, his recruiting to Florida State. But he was gone by then.
I'm just saying, just saying, you're wasting your time. Brad and Frank.
If you don't ask, Frank, you never get.
Frank, you're better off hoping to get Kuznard tomorrow, you know, beating out Bradley and beating out Illinois and those people.
That's who you really want to be in recruiting battles with.
Well, I mean, you're
Bradley
not going to beat
Illinois.
North Carolina and Duke and those people head to head. It just ain't going to happen.
I mean,
if you can't get a guy in your own backyard who grew up in Florence, then moved to Spartanburg, you can't get him and you're Frank and you're Brownell, then you got to realize.
You got Sindarius Thornwell.
It ain't happening. Well, Sindarius.
Got PJ Dozier.
He was a legacy. You know the story there. And
yes.
Thornwell was a good get. He was a very good get.
Okay.
But he's apparently
discounting him now.
He's apparently not Zion. I mean, you know, Sindarius spent 4 years in college.
who are you insulting more, Zion or Frank and Brad?
I think he's insulting Sindarius.
I'm just saying you're wasting your time.
Let's go to Alex. A better ball player than Zion.
Alex in Charleston. Welcome in.
Thank you. I just listened, just heard your Tiger Woods comments. I totally agree with the pro and your comments. But before I talk about the swing, if I can quickly talk about his age, listen, I'm 56 years old. I work in the food and beverage industry in Charleston, South Carolina. I outwork guys who are 20 years younger than me. Other than the fact that maybe I have to use, reading glasses, I'm good to go. I got to play tennis. I'm fine. And I think a lot of part of the media wants to downplay. The older you get, I watched some of that tournament. Oh yeah, like he's like lost a little something eyesight. I think they played up too much. Because I'm telling you what, right now, I have a little gray. I'm good to go. I get a couple hours sleep in downtown working in food and beverage. And I literally outwork physically guys 19 years old. I can quit. Now back to the swing of Tiger Woods. The quitting, the things have changed. When Tiger Woods initially started playing, he was out mud. He was using his body. He didn't have graphite shafts. He had a steel shaft for his driver. And he muscled the ball. And like the pro said, he torqued his back. He hit down on the ball. Because you hit, there's a, what do you call it in golf? You hit down to make it go up.
We got to run. Sorry, we are out of time. Call back Monday, though. Good point you're making there.
Is he a golf pro?
Have a great weekend. Follow us on the website over the weekend at Basketball and Recruiting. Have a great weekend.